Alright, welcome back everybody. We're going to do a tomato review on this tomato right here, and this is called the Wareth tomato. Don't know much about it. Whatever information I can find, I will put in the description below, like usual. So, let's take a closer look at this tomato. Nice little beefsteak. I'm sure they get a little bigger than this. And I'm not sure if all the sizes are typically like this, but most of the ones that are on the plant now look very similar to this, maybe not quite as kidney shaped. Alright. So, like I said, I don't know much about the tomato offhand, but I will put whatever I can find about the variety on the website. Alright, so let's store it on the scale, see what it weighs. 5.3 ounces, so that's not bad. It's about probably the average weight you're going to see. Okay, so let's move over here and let's do a Brix on this wonderful tomato variety. Move that out of the way. Give you a look at the inside. Isn't that gorgeous looking tomato? That's a lot of meat in there. Nice meaty tomato. Here's the other side. Nice. Okay, let's cut a strip off and see what it reads on the Brix. For you Brix folks out there, I know I got a lot of Brix people that look for that Brix number. I wouldn't go too crazy with Brix because that's really more of an environmental thing than it would be for the actual tomato. You can bring the Brix number up artificially by adjusting soil, pH, things like that. Alright, so this is pretty high. It's a 6 on the Brix. We're above the average mark, which is 5. So that's pretty good for a tomato this size. So let's give this a taste test. That's a delicious tomato, I'll tell you that right now. I'm just going to grab this whole thing here and do a bite right out of this one. It's got an interesting effect to the flavor. I'll be honest with you. The flavor is kind of strange. You get like a sweetness, but you also get a strong tanginess to it, but they come in different stages. Kind of strange. I don't normally, usually you get one or the other, or... Alright, we got our numbers. Let's break out the cheat sheet. Which my cheat sheet is getting destroyed. I'm going to make one of these out of plastic. Because I can't help it. If this is anywhere near where I clean tomatoes, seeds squirt all over the place. They're starting to hit this thing. It's getting stained. So we're going to make a new one out of plastic. And I'll probably make some small changes to this. Okay, so let's start with the sweetness. The sweetness was definitely above average. I'm probably going to say the sweetness was probably around, average would be 25 on a scale from 0 to 50. So we're definitely going to go above average on this for the sweetness. I'm probably going to say the sweetness was about 32 on here, somewhere in that range. It was definitely above 30. So we'll go with 32 on the sweetness. Absolutely perfect on the sweetness. Sweetness was funny. It kind of came and then left, and then the tangy took over. So it wasn't like a mishmash of flavors that were coming in. It's weird. The sweetness, I tasted the sweetness right away. It subsided relatively pretty quick, and then the tanginess came over. So let's get into the tanginess. Now, the tanginess was definitely above average. I'm going to put that around 34, 35 on the tangy. Just slightly above the sweetness, but it was a really good combination, really good balance. They really made it up very well as far as the sweet and tangy part, and they worked quite well. Tanginess seemed like it was a little higher on the aftertaste because the sweetness just kind of dissipates very quickly. But I'm still going to leave it at about 34, maybe 35 on the tanginess, somewhere in that range. But it was definitely above average quite a bit, and it was very prominent flavor, very delicious type of tanginess too. Had a nice richness to it that really, really hits a certain region of the back of your tongue. So here's the back of your tongue, and you got the outside areas of the back of your tongue that really savors a lot of the flavors. But then just off to the inside part of the back of your tongue right there, that's where you really pick up a lot of the tomato flavors and the tanginess, the types of tanginess that come in and that work with the flavors. You really have to really focus on that area when you're looking for those flavors. Now, sometimes you get them up front, sometimes it's the aftertaste, sometimes they come in, you got to look for it. But once you train yourself enough or you do it enough, you start to pick up those little nuances with those flavors at that region of your tongue. You got to wait till that part of your tongue is activated before you can make that decision of whether it was tangy or sweet or not tangy or whatever. So let's get into the tomato flavor. The tomato flavor was pretty dominant in there. Again, we're talking about not how good the flavor was. We're talking about how strong the tomato flavor was in the overall tomato tasting experience. And it was pretty high on this one. So from a 0 to 10, I'm probably going to put this at about a 7.5, maybe 7 3/4. It was a pretty prominent flavor. It had a flavor from the tip of the tongue to the back of the tongue. It came in very early on the taste test, and it's still lingering on the back of my tongue, on the the back sides of the outside, the inside, the outsides of the back of your tongue, as well as a little bit on the inside. I could still savor that flavor. It's a pretty amazing delivery package for this tomato. I'm pretty impressed with it, I'm going to be honest with you. Moisture was a little on the high side, but it was good because the moisture helped deliver the whole flavor package to that area of your tongue. So the moisture was well welcomed in there. It was definitely needed to help deliver that flavor. So moisture, I'm probably going to put that at about a 7 on the moisture. It was quite moist. It was very, very, very moist. I could probably squeeze that into a glass and get a glass of tomato juice out of it, which would probably taste really good, to be quite honest with you. If you've never had raw tomato juice from really good tomatoes, you got to try that. That's really, really good. I'm not talking about V8 here, or tomato juice you buy in a can from the store. Tomato juice you squeeze yourself is almost like drinking, like any other type of juice that you drink. Apple juice, if you ever had pure, well-squeezed apple cider or apple juice, freshly squeezed or juiced from an apple, is totally different than the apple juice you're getting in the store that comes apple juice in the bottle. It's totally different experience, guys. If you've never had pure, clean apple juice, well, then you're going to have to juice your own apples to get that experience before it oxidizes and turns to apple cider. You want that fresh juice while it's clear. Ain't nothing like it in the world. Same thing with grapes. Well, the same thing with tomatoes. When you squeeze your own tomatoes and you get that glass of juice out of it, you get a really strange tomato juice experience. It's a very interesting type of an experience. Very, very good. You can make your own V8s with tomato juice and lettuce juices and kale juices. You squeeze them out, you juice them, and you can make some really, really good vegetable juice cocktails. But you need good tomatoes. This would be an excellent candidate for that because it's very juicy. Tarty and sour, there was maybe a little something in there, but it was really, really small, very small amount, very low detection. I would probably put that at about a 0.2 or a 0.5 if you want to go on the tardiness. There was a very slight bit, but it was very short-lived, and it was in the very back of my tongue. So it did have a little something, but almost undetectable. You have to actually look for it. Undertones on the tomato. I didn't get any undertones at all from it. It tasted like a really good tomato variety. No earthy tones, no flowery tones, no fruity tones, nothing weird like that. It was a straight tomato flavor, and it was very, very nice and rich type of flavor. So no undertones. We're going to go 0 on that one. Texture was perfect. I'm probably going to go an 8 on the texture, guys. The reason why I'm going high, when I'm talking about rating the texture high, it's not chalky, it's not grainy, it's not overly mushy. It's not, it held its shape, and it really, it didn't get like, any weirdness to it. It wasn't chalky or dry or anything like that. Texture was absolutely perfect. When you put that in your mouth, it melted in your mouth. When you cut it and you put it like for a salad, it keeps its shape. It holds everything together nicely. So the texture was very nice. And now the skins, I know I'm adding it to here, but I'm going to change that. I'm going to separate the skins now because it's really starting to affect the way I rate these tomatoes. But until I can make those changes, the skins were perfect. They chewed up nicely with the tomato. And I'm not going to rate the skins separately now, but in my future videos, I am going to add skins separately because sometimes they're really tough and sometimes they're not. This one was perfect. It broke up with the tomato. The tomato is generally pretty soft. I can take my thumb right now right? And I can just push it right into there, and the whole tomato would melt away as I'm pushing my thumb in there. But yet, if you cut that up and put it in a salad, it'll keep its form. So that's what you want. That's the perfect type of texture when we talk about texture. Again, it's not chalky. Chalky meaning dry. Um, it tastes like you're eating milk powder or something. It doesn't taste like that, but the effect of like stick a mouthful of flour in your mouth. It's not a chalky type of an experience. It's not a grainy type of experience where you can feel little grains in your mouth from it being mushy and grainy. That's a very terrible tomato effect. Sometimes you do get tomatoes that do that. Some varieties are more prone than others. This variety is not that at all. And so just keep that in mind when I'm talking about texture. That's what we're referring to. When you're low on the scale, we're talking chalky, grainy, mushy type of gushiness, flavorless type of just nastiness. And then when you're talking 10, we're talking like almost what we're looking at here. This is just about a 10. All right, so moving over to production, how productive was it? Well, this year I didn't do too good with it. I only got about 3 or 4 tomatoes off it, around what the size you're looking at, roughly around the same shape, same weight. I think next year we're going to grow this out. We're really going to try to see if we can increase the production. I mean, for now, I'm just going to rate it as an average production, even though I did get a lower production on my plants. But again, that's partly my fault, because I didn't get planting until late in the year. I didn't really do anything with the soil. I didn't really amend the soil. Didn't add any lime to the soil. I did the year before. And there was a lot of things that were affecting the way my tomatoes were either being productive-wise. I think I could have brought that production up by just making some changes, and that's kind of my fault. But we'll just rate it as an average right now, and it's rated at that. So as far as how would I rate this tomato from a scale of 1 to 10, with 1 being the highest, I'm going to put this at about a 1.5, guys. This is way up there. I'm not going to quite name it number 1, because I did hit a tomato this year that was a number 1. But this one is definitely close to being number 1. It's way up there. The flavor of this tomato, the effect on it, the tangy, the sweet, the way the balance is, the moisture, the whole package delivers that what you're looking for in a quality tomato in an heirloom, or a non-commercialized variety. Just so you know, a lot of people don't understand heirloom. When they hear heirloom, they think, oh, that's GMO, or it's a commercial grade tomato. No, it's not. It's just an open pollinated variety. This variety doesn't have a history behind it, so you can't call it an heirloom. An heirloom, anytime you hear heirloom tomato, what they're referring to is a tomato that's been around for at least 80 years, and it's got a history that goes back to that 80-year period. So it could have been in the family generation being grown for 80 years. And as long as if there's some history and background to it, then you can technically call it an heirloom. Just like you do with your mother's wedding ring, you pass it down to your daughter, and she passes it to her daughter, and so on and so on. Or your grandfather passes down his pocket watch to his grandkids or his son. These are heirlooms that stay in the family forever and ever. That's an heirloom. And so that's the same thing we're talking about here. Now, this may not necessarily be an heirloom. It could be an open pollinated variety. Might have been around 10 years. It could have been around 30 years. We don't know, but it doesn't make it an heirloom. All right, so it doesn't mean that it's no good. It just doesn't have that history behind it to be called an heirloom. All right, just want to make sure I'm clear about that. So I can't call it an heirloom, but it's definitely an open pollinated variety, and wherever this thing comes from is remarkable as far as the flavor and delivery of this tomato. Absolutely delicious. Give you one more look at the inside. Look at the richness and color of that tomato on the inside. Yeah, it's a little bit green on the inside, because I let this ripen on my table because it was still green on this side. Took a long time for that green to go away, but look at that, guys. That is a delicious, absolutely delicious tomato. So how would I rate that? About a 1.5, guys. I would almost go a little higher if I'd gotten a little more production out of that. If I'd did really good this year, regardless of my growing conditions, I'd probably be rating that at number 1. That's how good the taste of that tomato and the whole effect was. All right, so that's it. That was your tomato review on the Worth tomato. I will leave information in the description below, as well as a link where you can buy the seed for this tomato at hrseeds.com. All right, so don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one. Take care.